Awesome. Hi, everyone. I am Ruben Chu from the Workamajig marketing team. Today's webinar is about mastering tax compliance with Avalara. For those of you who don't know, Avalara is our newest integration here at Workamajig. At Workamajig, we're always striving to help our customers with making their processes as simple and effective as possible. That's why we chose Avalara as our next integration. Avalara's got the same goal as us, all about making things as simple and as efficient as possible. Today's webinar is hosted by Scale by Workamajig. Scale by Workamajig is a new thought leadership community and website that Workamajig is just launching. You probably haven't yet heard about it. It's something brand new. We're putting together a lot of new content, articles, webinars like this. There'll be a lot more webinars coming up. I'm going to drop you guys the link for that right after. Today's webinar, we have Sasha Armour and Chad Meszaros. Sasha, we'll start with you. I'm not going to talk too much about you. I'll let you introduce yourself in a minute. But Sasha's basically been working with us hand in hand from the beginning, building out this integration. It's been a pleasure working with you. And if you'd like to jump on and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Sasha Armour, and as Ruben said, I've had the pleasure of working with the Workamajig team as they have built the integration to Avalara. We are very excited for this partnership, and we've already had a few of Workamajig's beta customers come on board with Avalara, which is very exciting. So it's wonderful when we have such great partners like Workamajig to work together. I know the team has always given lots of care and support as we go through those conversations. So we're very excited to talk a little bit more about sales tax, which I know is not the most exciting topic, however, also very important in our worlds.
Okay, thank you, Sasha. I'm so happy to have you. Next up, we have Chad Meszaros. Chad is like basically the on-the-ground leader in Avalara that's been helping with all Workamajig clients. Anyone who has questions about what Avalara does, what they can do for you, how that integrates into Workamajig, Chad is there. Super reachable. I'm very happy to help with whatever you need. And Chad, if you want to get on, introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah, hey guys, Chad Meszaros. Again, I've been with Avalara almost 10 years now, so I'm senior sales executive and will be the main point of contact for all Workamajig customers interested in using Avalara services. So looking forward to kind of explaining some of that today. And if there are questions, again, my contact information will be included. So happy to have those conversations in one-off scenarios to see if this would be a good fit for you and see if we can help streamline and automate your sales tax.
Amazing. Thank you, Chad. I'm so happy to have you. And before we get too far, do any of you want to jump on for a minute and give us like a quick high-level rundown of what Avalara is, what you guys do, and then we'll jump into our discussion.
Yes, with that, Avalara is sales tax compliance software. And with that, I believe Workamajig chose Avalara as a sales tax partner because the taxing landscape is incredibly complex and only becomes more so year after year. So with that, Avalara, we've been around for 20 years now, always have been a cloud-based solution and have been continuing to grow our tax compliance suite, not just within the United States, but also the global landscape. So we're continuing to grow and evolve based on our customers' requirements.
Okay, amazing. Yes, it's been a pleasure to work hand in hand with Avalara till now, and we're just getting started on our journey, so we're really excited for that. So today's webinar is about mastering tax compliance. As Sasha mentioned, tax is definitely a boring topic, especially for creatives. I know anyone in our industry, they just want to create, make, produce, not worry about the details and the numbers and making sure that everything's in line. But yes, it's important, and we'd love to. Really, the goal of this webinar today is to keep it boring. We want to keep it simple. We want to keep it out of your hair. So that's what we're going to talk about today. No audits. That is the goal. Just curious to hear from the audience a little bit. How many of you feel prepared today if a surprise tax audit were to happen? I'm going to throw up a quick poll, and I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. Actually, you can just drop your response in the Q&A. Any of you think who your company is ready for a surprise tax audit? Drop something in the chat. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Before we get started with actually talking about Nexus and what's got with the more recent changes to the tax landscape, I'd love to hear from you, Sasha and Chad. What are the major areas of business transformation you've seen with Avalara customers after implementing your software?
I think some of the largest changes that we hear in our customers' feedback is how much time they save. There's a hidden cost of compliance that companies don't realize because it's not a line item on your profit and loss statement, but the time that your team is leveraging, researching tax rules and changes, if you're going into a new state, trying to understand what their laws are, or just time leveraging, looking up rates, remitting returns, it can be a huge burden on your team's workflow with that. So that, and also going hand in hand with having a peace of mind. So again, a lot of companies are scared about sales tax. They don't understand it. They don't feel confident they would make it safely through an audit. So once you have Avalara implemented, really, you know that you have a compliance solution in place so that you can focus more on your day-to-day business and less on being a sales tax expert.
Nice, thank you for that. I think we're all about getting the simple things, not fun things, automated and done for us, and we can just focus on our work in hand. So thank you. All right, awesome. Yes, so definitely mention Nexus and love to hear more about that. Chad, whenever you're ready, we'd love to hear your presentation. And guys, keep in mind that we will have Q&A right after this. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. If it's something that's relevant to like where we're at, so we'll jump in and try to answer that then. And if not, we'll try to get to your questions afterwards.
Perfect. And hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yes, it's coming across nicely.
Perfect. So again, we want to talk a little bit about, mastering tax compliance with Avalara. As Sasha mentioned, a lot of hidden costs, a lot of things that people are evaluating today, but there's still, from the conversations we have, still a lot of unknown when it comes to sales tax. So again, want to take you through some high level details on that, give some other resources that we have available, talk about that. We'll share some links afterwards as well. Again, we've already introduced ourselves, so we'll kind of flip over to the agenda. But, really, why does sales tax matter? Some of the basics that, again, after talking to customers on a daily basis, I'm surprised how many people are still getting used to knowing some of this. We're going to focus on the word nexus. If you're not familiar, we're going to learn a little bit about that. Some of the five basic steps to kind of take away from this on managing your compliance. And then obviously the tips with Workamajig and Avalara, how we can kind of help very high level on that as well. So again, I know we've already touched on Avalara in general a little bit, but just at a very high level, we've been around almost 20 years. We are helping customers of all sizes, from mom and pop shops up to Fortune 500 companies. One thing that's consistent for everyone is sales tax. So we're helping almost 30,000 customers today with this, automating, streamlining this process. What's made us so successful is working with partners like Workamajig. They're one of 1,400 signed partner integrations we have, which means you don't have to worry about the IT side of things. If it's something you need to help streamline, then it's already built, it's ready to roll, and we can help you automate that process. Slides. Oh, sorry. Too far ahead. So again, why does it matter? I mean, at the end of the day, the compliance landscape is unpredictable. You'll notice in zip codes there can be varying tax rates. There's almost 14,000 taxing jurisdictions just in the United States. So being able to keep up with all the different rates, because getting the state rates half the battle. You still have cities, you have counties, you have transportation tax, transit taxes. So again, having an accurate calculation for your customers is important. And you'd be surprised, a lot of your customers probably do know what tax rate they should be charged. And even an extra 0.5% up or down can lead to maybe a customer satisfaction issue as well. So getting that accurate, and then obviously just for your business with, again, avoiding audit, avoiding things that could come up if you're talking to the state, you want to make sure that's as accurate as possible. And the other big piece of sales tax, why is it so important? It is a huge source of revenue for the states. Outside of property tax, it's number 2 as far as revenue generating activities for these companies or for these states. So again, as we continue to move forward, I think this is going to be one thing they focus on. Again, kind of that post-COVID world, you could say that states are needier and greedier than ever, and they do rely on this as a big portion of their state revenue. So most companies fall into two buckets. You have the brute force. They're just trying to cobble everything together. It's time consuming, it's costly, or they're kind of hoping for the best. They know they're probably not 100% compliant, but they're just, hey, if I don't get audited, no big deal. I've had many customers, let the states come find me. Well, they will at some point. So again, neither one of these is a great solution. So hopefully we can help try to put that at ease and make it a little easier for you as we move forward. So again, referenced it earlier, and again, always love starting these conversations with Nexus. This is one of the biggest pieces of sales tax, and if you're not familiar, it's really your connection between the states and your business to collect sales tax. So if you've created Nexus in a state, you have a liability to collect. And again, it has changed over the years. So some people think, hey, I've been doing business for 20 years. I'm located in North Carolina. I collect North Carolina sales tax. I'm good. Well, there's a lot more complexity to that, and things have changed over the years. So again, knowing where you collect, I can't stress enough, is probably the number one piece to make sure you're being as compliant as possible for your company. And when it comes to Nexus, there's different types of Nexus that you can create. So physical presence, I'm located in this state. That's the big one. That's the one that most people know. And I'd say most people are fairly decent at tracking that one. Where am I located? Where do I have employees? Where do I have warehouses? Where am I storing my product, etc. Economic nexus is another big piece that had changed over the last few years. In 2018, a big Supreme Court decision, South Dakota versus Wayfair, has now created all 45 states that have sales tax have some type of economic nexus law, which means that you can sell a certain amount of product into their state. And even some states have a threshold on how many orders go into their state. You can create economic nexus, which is treated exactly the same as moving into that state. So again, something else our software can help track, but even if you're not using us, something you want to track of how much business you're doing in certain states. Minimum thresholds typically $100,000. So I typically tell people I would look at that first. Again, some states do have that 200 order threshold. It's typically calendar year or previous calendar year. But again, something to kind of keep an eye on as you move forward. But there's other places, again, I won't go through all these, but other ways to create nexus, from click-through to affiliate and even marketplace nexus. So again, a lot of different ways that can create that requirement to collect sales tax in certain states. And again, things to be aware of. Some other nexus creating activities, again, little things that you might not even think of: attending trade shows, drop shipping, remote sales, a lot of different things. So again, keeping an eye on that. I can't stress enough the importance of that. Avalara does have a full tax advisory services team. So if you are concerned and you want to do, for example, a sales tax risk assessment, that is something that we can help with and make sure you are up to date with that. Or if you've came across potential past liability in certain areas, we can help you get compliant with the state, whether it be registering for sales tax moving forward, or even a longer term project like a voluntary disclosure agreement, where we'll help you get up to date with any back filing, make sure that you're compliant in that state moving forward, etc. So a lot of great services, but again, keeping an eye on your nexus and knowing where your business is. As far as 5 steps of managing, again, I like this slide because it's about as simple as you can make this very complex world. I've already spent a lot of time on number 1, but again, if I'm going to talk to anyone individually, that's always where I start the conversation of understanding where your business needs to collect. That's the one thing that gets so many people in trouble, because they've created nexus either physically or economically, and they're not registered in that state, and the state then takes them through an audit, and now they have not only back taxes, but penalties, interest, etc. So understanding where you need to, getting registered, again, things we can help with if you want to get help registered in a state, or if you hit that threshold and you don't have any past liability, but you just need to get registered moving forward, Avalara can help you with that as well. And then really where our software comes into play is 3, 4, and 5. So once you're understanding and you're registered in the correct states, the next step is the challenge of calculating correctly. Again, that's where we're going to fit in directly with Workamajig to help accomplish that. Tracking any type of exempt sales. If you go through an audit, I can guarantee one of the top things that auditor is going to ask you is, you didn't charge sales tax to these 5, 10 customers. Where's their documentation to prove that exemption? So you need to make sure you have that. And then obviously, if you've collected money or collected any sales tax that belongs to the state, you need to have a plan to remit that back to the state every month or quarter, depending on what the state assigns to you. So again, remitting that sales tax, another piece we can help with. So when you look at our full compliance suite, it's really made up of 4 pillars. We've kind of touched on some of those, but I'll just kind of big picture look at this. So we have our tax research tool. Again, the portal that can log in if you have sales tax related questions, answers. You can even look up rates. You can research certain laws if needed. We have tax expert Q&A included in that. So our tax research project. We have the tax determination. Again, that's our Avatax software. So that's what Workamajig has built their integration into. That's going to be a real-time calculation. We're keeping up to date with all of the rates, the rules for all of the different states. So when you place an invoice, it's a real-time calculation. Workamajig sends us the invoice information in less than a second via API. We return that sales tax calculation we turn in, use lat long to get a rooftop level accuracy of where your customer is located to make sure we're capturing all of the correct taxing jurisdictions. We have our exemption certificate management software. So if you need help collecting those certificates, just storing those or even managing them, there's multiple states, Florida, Alabama, Arizona are the ones that come up the most. If you collect a retail certificate from a customer, those actually expire every single year and you need to recollect those. So our software helps you manage those, run reports to see if you have any invalid or expired certificates, and you can, with a click of a button, collect a new certificate. So again, that's the exemption certificate piece. And then on the far right, you have our sales tax remittance and return. So again, remitting that back to the state. That's another thing that we noticed that's probably the most time consuming for a lot of customers, especially if you're talking multiple states. Spoke with a gentleman yesterday. He's in 25 different states and he has to file those sales tax returns every month. He was like, Chad, it takes me literal week to do just my sales tax filing. So if you can automate that, so again, we have a way where you would literally set it up, check the numbers each month, and we actually do the filing, make the payment to the states on your behalf. So again, as you can see, really the goal of our company and our partnership with Workamajig is to help you automate, make this more efficient, and really just streamline everything sales tax. All of these things would be located in our central location with a dashboard for Avalara. So again, it gives you one place you go through an audit, then you have a place to kind of look through that. And real quick, before we jump over to kind of Q&A, I think next, I do have a couple of things I wanted to point out. Ruben and I were going through this. One thing I do want to mention is we have a great blog article, a lot of different blogs that you can search through. So if there's certain things you're just curious about, I highly suggest looking through our blog. We are constantly posting up-to-date sales tax information, other things. We thought this was a good one for today of what is a sales tax audit? I think people talk about that a lot. I think a lot of people don't realize what a sales tax audit necessarily is. And they also don't know what happens if I get audited. So while I don't want to read through this entire article, I do think it's highly, as you see, a lot of different things you can look through from this, from what is a sales tax audit, how are businesses selected, some common audit triggers. Again, we've already touched on that a little bit, whether it be documentation or incorrect sales tax calculations, or just not you having nexus in a state that maybe you're not registered in. So again, I would highly suggest kind of looking through this. It's got a lot of great information. Talks about, again, who conducts it and everything you can do to hopefully prepare. And again, our goal is to have all of your information in one spot for you if you're an Avalara customer. From my 10 years of working here, I've worked with many customers and almost all of them have gone through an audit. We're like, thankfully, we're using Avalara. It just made their life so much easier, whether it be quickly pulling a document that they needed for the auditor or just, reviewing certain transactions that may have happened. So we'll send this link afterwards. So you have that and kind of read through this as needed, but a lot of great information. And again, some of the common audit triggers we'll touch on. Getting nexus wrong. Kind of mentioned that already, but again, that's one of the most common things that you see is they're just not realize they should be registered, or they're like one of those customers that I talked to that said, let the states come find me. At some point they will. You have states like California who have auditors in all 50 states just to collect California state revenue. So again, just waiting for them to find you is not the best idea. Using out-of-date tax rate information. Again, our system's cloud-based. We can keep up to date with these rates in real time. So a lot of people today may just loaded some tax tables in. 4 years from now, those tax tables are probably extremely out of date or maybe not the most accurate. And that could be leading to incorrect calculation. Again, jurisdiction wrong. Obviously, you can imagine why that would be. Product taxability, one other thing that brings up a good point that I forgot to mention. One other thing Avalara does with our AvaTax software is we can tax at a product level. So we don't just tax the total order and give you that sales tax amount. We actually look at all the line items included. And if you have things like shipping, services, installation, those type of things vary from state to state, we can actually assign that product taxability. So you may have multiple line items on invoice and maybe only one or two of them require a sales tax. So getting that correct, or certain states have partial tax on items, again, things we can help with. And then again, missing exemptions. Like I said, that's the number one question I hear from everyone who's been through an audit, is that not having that documentation on file for certain customers. Because now, even though that customer should have been, let's just say it's a school, church, or something that's pretty known exemption, but you don't have that documentation, some states will give you a grace period to go get it. Some states also will just say, you know what, you don't have the documentation. All of those sales you made to them are now taxable. You're on the hook for the tax. And by the way, you owe penalties and interest because you haven't paid this tax before. So again, getting those type of things incorrect is huge. Getting use tax wrong, another big piece. If you're self-assessing any kind of consumer use tax, then stuff you want to get correct. So again, some of the common things, I want to kind of touch on that. We'll send the link out so you have that information. I don't want to, again, spend too much time on that. But a lot of great information included in that link. And again, have many articles on many different topics that I think would be relevant if you want to learn more about sales tax. And then last thing I'll touch on too is we have a great case study. We have multiple of these on the website, so I'd highly suggest kind of reviewing some of these. I kind of picked, one of my favorites, but again, the civil geo engineers, worry-free tax automation with Avalara. So, this company, again, founded in 2010, came through our site. They were working with an accounting firm. They were in Wisconsin, but they had hit economic nexus thresholds. They weren't really sure how to deal with that. So again, due to that South Dakota versus Wayfair, the accounting firm, offered to implement Avalara, kind of get a better solution in place. They looked at a couple of different solutions, but in this case, the integration with QuickBooks put them over the edge. For a lot of you listening to this call, Workamajig integration would be the big piece that we can integrate with that software. But again, a lot of the things we talked about, they're using AvaTax, they're using our returns functionality, which is that filing, they're using the exemption certificate management. But again, it helps improve their process. It integrated with their systems, which is a big piece and why it's so important that we can integrate in multiple places, but increase their compliance. And again, they've been extremely happy with everything they've done so far. And again, it gave them a lot more confidence in being compliant and took a lot off their plate as far as making sure that, again, they're not caught up in some of those common audit triggers that we just talked about. So another great success story. We got multiple of those on the website. I'm happy to talk through some of those in one-off conversations as well, but wanted to share a couple of those. And again, another link that we'll kind of send out after we're done with that. So I think with that, I think we're just jumping over to Q&A. Is that correct, Ruben?
Yes, I think so.
And now real quick, I do want to flash up back over to my slides. I do want to give, obviously we'll get into questions, but also just want to quickly throw up our contact information. This will be, I'm sure, included in the follow-up as well. But if you want to talk to Sasha and I, we're happy to have these conversations as well. So that, if anyone wants to snag that, and then I'll stop the share for now.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chad. I really learned a lot. I personally found Nexus to be like overwhelming when I was researching it. And it's great to get just a quick breakdown on it. What does it mean? What does it include? And obviously to have a solution that can help you out with that is definitely awesome. All right, we have a couple of questions coming in. If anybody else wants to drop some questions in the Q&A option over here on the bottom, drop them in and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Obviously the first question, which I think comes up with all these webinars, is how do we get started with Avalara and how much does it cost?
No, great question. That is always the $1 million question. To get started, obviously reach out to me or Sasha. Sasha's my manager. She just got promoted. We were Workamajig together, so it would be kind of streamlined to me, but reach out to us. We're happy to have the conversation. As far as how much it costs, again, everyone wants to know that. The answer is that it can vary. So we base our pricing on, again, how many invoices you're processing, but only in your Nexus states. That's a big reason I spend so much time talking about Nexus, to make sure that we understand that and make sure, one, you're compliant, but also that. So the pricing, again, everyone on this call likely could fall into different buckets, but to kind of summarize, it's transactional based. We want to know how many invoices come through Workamajig that need Avalara's calculation. in your Nexus states only. We will subtract out any non-Nexus states. So that's kind of the big piece to think about. But as far as getting started, having that conversation with us, what I'd like to do is just dig into your business, learn a little bit more about how you're handling it, learn about your Nexus requirements. Are there any concerns? Are there any states you may need to look into moving forward? And then obviously we could address that and based on yours. So again, companies vary from invoice volume, companies vary due to Nexus requirements. So tough question, but certainly happy to kind of have that conversation.
Okay, for sure. Thank you, Chad. And one question from me. How long does implementation usually take?
Great
I
question.
know, obviously, we're in the software industry. Implementation is all about, we can do whatever we want, whatever we can from our side. And obviously it depends on the customer and, how fast they're ready to move. But with a customer that is ready to move as fast as they can, from your side, how long does it typically take?
Yeah, another great question. And again, can vary by complexity, can vary on, again, which services. As you saw, we touched on many things, but focusing on kind of AvaTax, which is that main tax calculation engine with the Workamajig, I would say 30 to 45 days on average on kind of that, hey, we're ready to go. That's probably still a little conservative. We've seen people get it implemented within weeks. I always, if I tell you it's a couple of weeks, then it takes 30 days. I don't want you to be mad at me. So I do tell people on average 30 to 45 days for those that are motivated. And some of that's just scheduling calls with our Go Live team, which will provide some guidance on the setup process. And sometimes you got to get the schedules aligned to have those calls. So I would say that's a good average timeline. You certainly don't want to say, hey, we're going live on Workamajig tomorrow. We need to plug in Avalara. It's not quite that easy. Again, but it's based on your company profile. So when you set up our software, you are required to set up a company profile of where do you have Nexus, potentially mapping some of your SKUs with our tax code to provide some of that product taxability. So again, it does vary on complexity, but I do think that 30 to 45 days before going live would be what I would suggest.
Okay, awesome. Before we get to the next question, we actually have Ken on from the Workamajig dev team. Ken, I'd love to ask you quickly, from the Workamajig side of things, how long does it take to get Avalara set up, or really what's the process to get Avalara set up?
Yeah, I think like Chad said, I think the biggest thing is to, first it's going to be an analysis of what your current, business is, the workflows and things like that. Once you get the idea of what you sell in the different nexuses, you're going to need to get the Avalara tax codes and link those to the various billing service items in Workamajig. Once that's set up, probably the bigger thing then is getting your addresses validated, just to make sure that when we do send the tax information off to Avalara, that it's the accurate area that you want to get taxed in. So those are really the two big things in Workamajig. Getting the basic linkage set up is just a couple pieces of items that we need, company code, license code, things like that on the Avalara side. You can easily input that into Workamajig, but then just a matter of getting your Avalara tax codes linked up with the different services and items and kind of making sure you have your addresses validated. Once it's there, everything should just flow right in with your existing invoicing process. So we'll take those line items on your invoices and link them up with the proper tax code and send it over to Avalara, get the tax information back, and it'll flow just like it would normally with taxes, just much more accurately.
Okay, thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next question. Oh, wow, I love this one. How bad is it to wait for them to find me if we may have Nexus but don't register?
Yeah, no, another great question. I know I kind of touched on that a little bit already. I've had many people go that route. It can be bad and it may never come up, but that is the one risk. It depends on, again, I think there's always a level of risk to compliance, but again, if you're not registered in a state like we talked about before, was if they go through an audit, then they could come back in and they can go back as far as they want. So they could go back 10 years. You'd have to pay that not only the sales tax that they uncover, but potentially penalties and interest. So it could be a very costly mistake by letting the states wait. But I also get, hey, we hit economic nexus by $1 and we're over. Like, again, do you want to run out and register your business? It's always a business decision for you in certain cases like that. Or I have one remote employee in this state. Do I need to get registered? I hear that all the time. Well, you may not need to, but I'm pretty sure you're probably filing payroll with that state. So it could come up. So depending on how much business you're doing in the state, it could be a really bad mistake. It may not be a big thing. I've had other people, hey, I've never registered in this state. They go through an audit, ends up being pretty small dollar amount. But again, it really varies. So like I said, I can't stress enough to understand where you're selling, what state you're selling into, kind of what that dollar amount looks like. Where do you have employees, and what could your potential liability be?
Gotcha. All right. Thank you for that.
We had another cute question at the bottom that I think Sasha was typing up an answer. It looks like.
Yeah,
came
I'm
through
working
in
on
the
the answer for that, but can address it. Actually, it's, the question that came through our chat was from Edward, and Edward asked, do we have tax experts focused on full service advertising companies? With that, Edward, Avalara does have our Avalara tax research tool as part of our tax compliance suite. In that, we have robust libraries around different verticals. Advertising is included with information in there. Part of that tool as well is also access to our tax experts. So if you are in that and you don't find an answer to what you're seeking, you can ask our team and they will respond back within 48 hours, typically a lot faster than that. So we do have that information that's available. We also have a robust library around different advertising tax codes built into our tax code library. So those are the ways that we do support that. We do still have companies that occasionally will continue to work with their tax experts if there's anything as well that you want additionally support outside of those software components.
All right, nice. Thank you for that. I'm going to throw out one more question. We got one more in here. When you hit an economic threshold, are you automatically registered in the state?
Yeah, another great question. So again, when you hit that threshold, nothing automatically happens. So we do track that within our software. So while we're only charging you for transactions that happen in your Nexus states, we do track any non-Nexus states to see if you've hit those thresholds, and we will track that. So if you do hit that, or you just became aware you've hit that on your own, nothing automatically happens. At that point, again, I always say it's a business decision for you. We always, highly suggest getting registered for sales tax in that state. Most states, when you hit the threshold, you have somewhat of a grace period. For example, you hit their threshold this month, they'll give you, a certain amount of time to get registered and start collecting. So you don't have necessarily retroactively go back and collect sales tax. But again, nothing automatically happens. We would suggest we can help you get registered if that's something you would like to do. But again, at the end of the day, it does come down to that business decision on your behalf. And like I said, even if in our system where we have the map of the United States and we kind of track that for you, we don't automatically do anything with that data. That's strictly for you to kind of do that comparison and then again make that business decision. But obviously, if you've exceeded a threshold, we're going to highly suggest, because we want to keep everyone as compliant as possible. So we would suggest getting registered, but that would ultimately still come down to your decision.
All right, got that. Thank you very, very much. Awesome. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Ken. It was great to have you all together. I learned a lot from this webinar, and I hope you guys did too. I'm going to shoot out a follow-up email in just a bit. We'll send over a recording for anybody who wants that. I'm going to also send out some content. I'd love to send that case study that Chad mentioned, and some other content from Avalara. And yeah, I guess that wraps us up for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, my
you,
pleasure.
Have a good day.
Okay, view all. Bye-bye.